Late in the year, we tackled the informal essay. The essay, don't you see, is the... My mind went numb. Of all forms of writing, none seemed so boring as the essay. Naturally, we would have to write informal essays. Mr. Flegel distributed a homework sheet offering us a choice of topics. None was quite so simple-minded as what I did on my summer vacation, but most seemed to be almost as dull. I took the list home and dawdled until the night before the essay was due. Sprawled on the sofa, I finally faced up to the grim task, took the list out of my notebook, and scanned it. The topic on which my eye stopped was the art of eating spaghetti. This title produced an extraordinary sequence of mental images. Surging up out of the depths of memory came a vivid recollection of a night in Belleville, when all of us were seated around the supper table. Uncle Allen, my mother, Uncle Charlie, Doris, Uncle Hal, and Aunt Pat served spaghetti for supper. Spaghetti was an exotic treat in those days. Neither Doris nor I had ever eaten spaghetti, and none of the adults had enough experience to be good at it. All the good humor of Uncle Allen's house reawoke in my mind as I recalled the laughing arguments we had that night about the socially respectable method for moving spaghetti from plate to mouth. Suddenly I wanted to write about that, about the warmth and the good feeling of it, but I wanted to put it down simply for my own joy, not for Mr. Flegel. It was a moment I wanted to recapture and hold for myself. I wanted to relive the pleasure of an evening at New Street. To write it as I wanted, however, would violate all the rules of formal composition I'd learned in school, and Mr. Flegel would surely give it a failing grade. Never mind, I would write something else for Mr. Flegel after I had written this thing for myself. When I had finished it, the night was half gone, and there was no time left to compose a proper, respectable essay for Mr. Flegel. There was no choice next morning but to turn in my private reminiscence of Belleville. 2 days passed before Mr. Flegel returned the graded papers, and he returned everyone's but mine. I was bracing myself for a command to report to Mr. Flegel immediately after school for discipline, when I saw him lift my paper from his desk and rap for the class's attention. "Now, boys," he said, "I want you to read an essay. This is titled, 'The Art of Eating Spaghetti.'" And he started to read. My words! He was reading my words out loud to the entire class. What's more, the entire class was listening attentively. Then somebody laughed, and then the entire class was laughing, and not in contempt and ridicule, but with open-hearted enjoyment. Even Mr. Flegel stopped 2 or 3 times to repress a small, prim smile. I did my best to avoid showing pleasure, but what I was feeling was pure ecstasy at this startling demonstration that my words had the power to make people laugh. In the 11th grade, at the 11th hour, as it were, I had discovered a calling. It was the happiest moment of my entire school career. When Mr. Flegel finished, he put the final seal on my happiness by saying, "Now that, boys, is an essay. Don't you see? It's of the very essence of the essay. Don't you see? Congratulations, Mr. Baker." For the first time, light shone on a possibility. It wasn't a very heartening possibility, to be sure. Writing couldn't lead to a job after high school, and it was hardly honest work. But Mr. Flegel had opened a door for me. After that, I ranked Mr. Flegel among the finest teachers in the school.